as I do sometime, I invite you into my mind to see how opinions and attitudes can be formed, and perhaps you not realize it. Now, when I was growing up, one of the things that I used to do was I used to hang out. I was from Brooklyn, so did a lot of hanging in the streets. And when I was growing up, it wasn't too much shootings and killings. There wasn't too many kidnappings and sex trafficking and all of this stuff. So when I was a youth, it wasn't that big of a deal for me at the age of 12 or something like that to be out about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. Uh, and it certainly wasn't any kind of a concern or anything for me to be out there in the daytime. So on a Saturday at, say 7 o'clock in the evening, my mom, she had no worries about where I was. So on a Saturday at 7 o'clock in the evening, when I was 11, 12, 13, it's very well that I could be standing on the corner. And on the corner, there's a few dudes hanging out, some drinking OE, some smoking herb. Nobody concerned because it's all really within the community in terms of socializing. And so on the same corner could be a dice game going. And I used to love to stand around the dice game. Obviously, that's how any person out there learned how to shoot dice, stand around the dice game. But I used to love standing around the dice game because not only were you, of course, learning how to shoot dice, seeing people win and lose money, but many of the characters growing up in Brooklyn were interested, man, to watch them shoot dice and the things they would say. And, it was interesting just to stand around the dice game as a young, impressible mind, just listening. And if you can imagine, I'm 11, maybe 12 or something like that. And I'm around this dice game, and we're talking about cats from like 18 to 25. So we got this range from 11, 12 up to 25. So you can imagine what the conversations are with these young men out here on the corner, right? So this is my young, impressible mind just listening, right? Now, of course, males are attracted to females. So in our culture, in the black culture at that time, it was expressed in different ways. So one of the things that I learned just a lot of times from standing around older cats, one of the things I learned was how important a woman's physical attributes were. So I could be standing around the dice game and a female could walk by, a young lady, and a lot of times the action would stop. And immediately everybody kind of just looked at her as she walked by. And it was 100% of the time that someone was going to say some comment about her ass. Nothing else before that. Nothing else before that. And so it was always interesting as a young man looking on and absorbing as a sponge. It was always interesting to kind of see what the comment was going to be. Just as it was always interesting to see what such and such was going to say as when he got, his shot at shooting the dice. So a lot of times now, and of course you might consider it lewd or whatever, but at that time I'm listening to it, and that is what the norm was. See, you're inside my mind now, and that's what the norm was. So, damn, one might say to the other, yo, homeboy, You see that ass? What does homeboy say? Yeah, man. What does he say? Boy, I fucked the shit out of that bitch. His homeboy. Yeah, man. Word, me too. Now, I'm 12 or something like that, right? Now, I'm just being honest because you're in my mind now. I'm 12 years old. So, this is what I'm hearing, you know what I'm saying? I may have not even been 12. Could have been 10 and heard this evening. So, so there's a correlation now. You see a female, everybody looks at her ass. Somebody in the crowd says, man, she got a, they used to say she got a nice ass, right? Or you would hear some of them, you know, because you had to try to be descriptive. You couldn't keep saying the same thing. So you hear another guy, you know, she got a sweet ass. All kinds of descriptions, right? But again, I'm young, I'm impressible, I'm absorbing all of this. So now you might hear, right? Because you can't, obviously they want to be more descriptive. Here's a 24-year-old guy. This other guy might be 20 or whatever. Other guy over here, you know, he might be 22 on leave from the military. You know, just different experiences you got right there sometimes. So now, one of the guys, you know, you see another female walk by. Oh, damn, homeboy, you seen that ass? Yeah, man. So he might, damn, boy, I eat that pussy. The other guy, yo, man, shit, I hear you, man. Or he might say some shit like, oh, no, shit, man, I ain't eating no pussy, man. Oh, shit. You know, just whatever like that. But you're hearing these conversations, and they're not filtering the conversations. I don't expect them to, right? We out here in the street. We in the hood or whatever you want to call it. So they just figuring shit. I'm teaching them something or whatever. So, but they don't know. They no malice about it. They don't mean no problem. They don't think they causing me no kind of mental harm or whatever. They teaching me or whatever. So, but this is going on in my mind now for years. You got to remember the streets. You out in the streets like a lot of times more than you in your house. Because again, at that time, nobody's concerned about somebody kidnapping their kids or shooting and killing. No, you out in the street, man, a lot of times. So this is how you learn it. So you start learning that there's a correlation in certain physical attributes are very, very important in our culture. They really were. And so I would look at females sometimes as I was growing up, as I'm learning this, that the physical attributes are very important. You know, in the summertime, you would see females that they would put on a halter top, right? And so the halter top, you know, it's not meant to put a bra on with a halter top. So obviously, what you're going to see with a halter top, you're going to see females who want to accentuate their breasts and their nipples, right? So you're looking at tits and ass now, right? And you, again, hearing all of these comments, you know, it don't matter what race, you know, you learning shit because at 10, nobody's thinking about eating pussy, right? But you're hearing it. You seeing dudes seeing females and shit walking by, right? And he's looking, because you're not, and this is what people, I guess, overlook. But you're not paying attention. Your mind at that age is just, wide open, right? And so we used to hang out sometime too, like we would on the corner. We used to hang by a bar. And this bar, a lot of white Italian dudes used to go in there. And again, they were, of course, 18 on from the time they could get in the bar and drink on up. Sometimes it was older men in there. A lot of times older men. But the younger ones used to come out and talk with us more. And so, you learned all kinds of things from that circle too. Especially from the white guys. We learned the most vulgar, I'm going to speak for myself. I learned the most vulgar stuff from their circles in terms of eating pussy and all of this. So, you could be standing there, again, we 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever, and listening to one of the guys, he see a female walk by or whatever, right? Or females that he know live over there, he would be tripping like, hey, Anna over there. This is funny, man, in hindsight especially. But he would say, hey, Anna over there, boy, she got a nice ass. I sucked the farts right out of her asshole. Now this is funny to me, man. Like I said, 'cause you got to be in my mind, and I'm not laughing at it at the time, you know. And that's just something that they typically would say around men, and they're looking at us as young men, so they're not filtering it, right? So I'm 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, and I'm looking at the guy, Ajax. Anyway, and listening to him saying, yeah, you know, Anna over here, boy, yeah, I would. And he was the one, he could do his tongue like this. Oh, he could make it go back and forth so fast, and that's how he would be telling us how he would really be eating a pussy. And he knows he's young, it's how he would be telling us how he's eating a pussy. And so, so then, like, you know, Anna, he would say, yeah, man, I'd suck the farts right out of my asshole. And, you know, you're 12 and whatever. You're like, kind of like, man, that shit sounds disgusting or whatever, you know? But anyway, this is how my mind got exposed to women and sex. It was no thing about, you know, learning it in school. Matter of fact, I never had sexual education in school. Never discussed it with my mom. Didn't have a dad. As far as discussing it with my brother, it was the same thing, which is what is straight up street stuff, right? Which is, oh man, you see such and such? Oh man, boy, I want to fuck her. You know, it was kind of everything was based on a physical type of a thing, and you know you might be hearing somebody introduce to to a friend or whatever. You know, what about such and such? Oh man, yeah, she got a nice ass. Oh, she do, man. Oh man, I'm gonna meet her. Blah blah. Didn't talk about nothing about school, how she look. A lot of how she look, man. She got a nice ass. You know, and so it was a lot of put on the physical. And so that's how my mind developed around that. And when you have an impressible mind, which you do when you're young, it's hard to change a lot of your thinking. It takes a lot. It takes a whole lot. So I don't know how you would do otherwise, but I guess a young person has to be. You got to watch what you expose them to, if you care. But I tell you, man, I had some of the craziest experiences in terms of that, and it came from, you know, being around older cats in the street, you know, but it helped you too. Like, for instance, there was a white guy that was in our crew when I was growing up, and if I was 12, he was like 16, so he was messing with a Puerto Rican girl that lived about 4 houses down from him, and they was getting to the point where they was really gonna do it, you know what I'm saying? And I always remember him. And we even started making up rhyme songs and shit like that about this experience with condoms. And he would always talk about having one. And at that time, to be honest, I didn't even know what a condom was. We never ever referred to it as a condom. It was referred to as a scumbag. A scumbag. And so he would always be talking and say, yo, man, I make sure I don't go nowhere without my scumbag, man. Like I said, it's very funny to me now, man. But I love to just let people see where my mind came from with this stuff. But anyway, he would always say that. And I can remember him having the imprint of the condom on his wallet, you know. Now, he was a white guy, Italian guy. And as I'm thinking back about it, I don't even remember his counterparts even putting much emphasis on a wallet at that time. So that's interesting to me now as I think about that. Because I'm going to tell you the exact opposite was that I had 2 guys that I'm thinking about right now that I learned all about my sex from, watching them like my big brothers. And I listened to how their whole situations went, and I watched even as, you know, when my boy, who he's like same thing, 4 or 5 years older than us, we all out there talking, you know, we would hang on his stoop sometime and just listen to the stories, you know, listen to the older cats, and then see his father leave to go to work, and he was living with his father, and when his father leave, the girl that he, you know, they started getting hot together, she come over to the house, right? And then when she come out, you know, after they were finished, she would come out all sheepish looking, like, oh, y'all know what we did or whatever she would be, and then, of course she'd go on and he'd get with her later, but he then would be around the boys, and you know what the first thing was, everybody was all ears, and he would be going through the whole thing graphically or whatever. So again, we 10, 11 years old, watching this, listening to it all, and now, he ended up getting her pregnant. She was like 16 years old or something like that. And the same thing for another one of the dudes I watched that was, a brother, 16 years old, something like, ended up getting another girl pregnant when she was, I think, 15 or 16. But the white guy, he was the one I learned, man, don't go nowhere, don't do no without your scumbag. You know what I'm saying? So still you learn by being on the street end of it or whatever without necessarily the formal. You learn about, you used to call it the clap. You don't want to catch the clap. But the condom really, for the white boy, was more for preventing pregnancy, because there was not really a bunch of clap going around. It's not like people were just that sexually active with so many people, in my opinion. But anyway, inside my mind, you could see that. So from an impressible stage going up the ages, I was experienced to what people would say was a vulgar type of experience, where to me it was just a learning experience. Even when I was younger than that, I saw some things sexually that was like, really let me know, and this was like 4 or 5, I know for sure. It definitely let me know that a man likes a woman and he likes to get close to her, and they like to be, this was always funny, and they like to be in private, right? And that whenever they were in private, if you interrupt them, the man especially would get very angry about it. Oh my God, especially if you happen to catch them where they were kind of into it, oh boy, you like be like, okay, I've even had, I can remember distinctly, I had a family friend, which we called him an uncle. I can remember he had a situation, and he wanted me to go away so bad he was bribing me with money. I never forget that as a young man. I know I was about 8, 1970 or something, yeah. But anyway, I thank goodness that I have certain disciplines. I really do. Because without discipline, it could, people with deviant minds, although everybody, from even people, I guess, who were raised differently, could still have deviant minds from perhaps being deprived, kind of like a preacher's kid syndrome or something like that. I don't know. But in terms of my mentality, very little porn. As a matter of fact, I'm averse to like just regular porn. Very little porn was I exposed to. As I started getting old, I would see my brother with magazines. Some of his friends would have magazines. Very little of that was I ever exposed to, and really did I even like. I always just actually like the actual people, but so the magazines, I didn't do that thing, but I learned a lot on the streets, and that was the source of my my education. And I just invite people in to think, because when you look at a person and you see people do things, you never know what they have been exposed to, and some people thinking goes a different way, because it's like, when you think about the evolution, like some guys might think, for instance, like I said, it came a time when females were conservative for the most part, but then there start coming this time as women were evolving, it was okay. All of a sudden you could come out with like no stockings, come out bare leg with some hot pants or a real short skirt, halter top with your titties or whatever, right? So as it start evolving into that, people had to start, really thinking that this dress is actually solicitous. In other words, it's trying to provoke a certain behavior because women didn't dress like that. So now that they're starting to be more liberal, it's perhaps suggesting something to a man, right? So there are some men whose mentality is set in. If they see a woman dress a certain way, they think that there's a certain desire that she has. So sometimes, that can be kind of like a slippery slope. But in any case, most people are disciplined about it and just go with the evolution, because if you're from, especially some of the more liberal cities, there's no telling what you will see women wearing now. I just know that, if some of the older cats, that I grew up around, I kind of would know what's going through their mind when they see females, period. But especially when they see them, dressed with half their ass out. Because, they learned about sex and everything around sex the same way I did on the streets, in the most vulgar terms. But, I mean, that was life at that time. And again, nobody thought of that as being vulgar. It was just culture. But, so you peeped in, and, I may be the only person who's had these kinds of experiences. I don't know. But I did want you to peep that from my perspective. So it is what it is.